The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning in the winter of 1929, and the man who received it was already dying. He had known it for months. The cough that had started in the mountains of Punjab had followed him across the Atlantic, through the grey skies of London, and into this small hospital room in Switzerland. His body, worn down by decades of walking barefoot through snow and jungle and desert, had finally begun to surrender what his spirit never would. But the letter was not about his death. It was about the fire. Specifically, it was from a missionary in Burma who had witnessed something 3 years earlier that she could not explain, could not file away, could not forget. A small gathering of Karen villagers. A mud building with a thatched roof. No electricity, no music, no trained minister. Just people on their knees in the dark, praying, and then, without warning, a light, not from a lamp, not from the moon. A light that settled over the building like a visible weight, pressing down, golden and silent, while inside, something broke open in every person in that room at exactly the same moment. She had been standing outside. She had seen it with her own eyes. She had written to every theologian she knew trying to find a rational explanation. She had written to this dying man in Switzerland because someone told her he would not be surprised. His name was Sadhu Sundar Singh. And she was right. He was not surprised at all. He had seen the light before. He had walked toward it once, in a moment of absolute despair, fully intending to die. And it had changed everything. But here is what nobody tells you about Sundar Singh. The miracles came later. They always do. Before the light, before the mountain journeys that would make him famous across 3 continents, before the princes and the bishops and the packed lecture halls in London and Sydney and Toronto, before all of that, there was a boy who hated Christianity with everything he had. And before the hate, there was a mother who prayed. Rampur, Punjab, India, September 3rd, 1889. Sundar Singh is born into a Sikh family of considerable standing. His father, Sher Singh, is not a poor man. He owns land, he has position. He dresses his sons well and expects things from them. The oldest son will manage the estate. The second son will be educated. This is the order of things. Sundar is the youngest. His mother, a woman whose name history has not preserved with the care it deserves, is the one who shapes him. Every morning before the household wakes, she takes her youngest child to sit at the feet of a holy man who lives nearby. A sadhu, a wandering ascetic who has given up everything the world calls valuable in order to pursue the one thing he cannot name but cannot stop seeking. Sundar sits in the dust and listens. He does not understand everything. But something in him learns, even then, that there is a kind of life the world cannot give and the world cannot take. His mother teaches him to read the sacred texts, the Gurbani, the Bhagavad Gita. She does not force religion into him like water into a vessel that has no room. She opens something in him and lets it breathe. He is 7 years old when he recites the entire Bhagavad Gita from memory. He is 14 years old when his mother dies. The world does not prepare you for that. No amount of scripture, no amount of early morning prayers at the feet of holy men. When the one person who made the universe feel coherent is simply gone, what remains is a silence so complete it becomes its own kind of noise. Sundar does not grieve quietly. He grieves the way only someone who has loved deeply and without reservation can grieve. With his whole body, his whole mind, his whole soul turned inward and burning. And it is in this burning that something else begins. The British government, in its efficient colonial manner, has built an English mission school in Rampur. It teaches arithmetic and grammar and geography, but it is run by Christian missionaries, and they do not hide what they believe. Sundar is enrolled because his father wants him educated. Sundar goes because he has nowhere else to put his grief. But grief, when it has nowhere to go, becomes rage. Every morning at the mission school begins with a Bible reading. Every morning Sundar Singh sits in that room and feels something inside him harden. This is not his people's book. This is the book of the colonizers, the people who have come uninvited to his country with their trains and their laws, and their certainty that everything here is inferior to what they have brought. He has heard the stories from older men. He knows what has been taken. And now they want to take this too. The private interior world, the sacred life of the spirit. He does not become quietly resistant. He becomes actively hostile. He tears pages out of Christian tracts. Not quickly, not in a rage, deliberately, one by one, so the missionaries will understand that this is not an accident. He organizes other students. He encourages them to mock the Christian preachers who stand on corners in the market. He is thorough and systematic about his contempt, the way only a highly intelligent 14-year-old with a burning grief and no good outlet can be. The missionaries are patient. They have seen this before. They continue. But 3 weeks after the last incident, 3 weeks after Sundar has torn the pages and watched them burn, something happens that no patient missionary strategy could have produced. December 18th, 1904. 3 in the morning. Sundar has not been sleeping. The grief for his mother has curdled into something that has no name in any language he knows. He has decided with the terrible clarity of a 15-year-old who has thought too carefully about a thing, that he will end his life before sunrise. He will place his head on the railway tracks that run half a mile from his home. He will let the 5 o'clock train from Ludhiana settle the question of whether the universe has anything left to offer him. He has made a condition, the way desperate people sometimes do. He has said to whatever God might be listening, "If you are real, show yourself before 5 o'clock. If you do not, I will know you are not there." He goes into his room. He bathes as his mother taught him. You do not approach the sacred unwashed. He prays, in the Sikh tradition, in the only language his prayers have ever known. He waits. At 3 in the morning, the room fills with light. Not the light of a lamp, not the light coming through the window from outside. A light that seems to come from no source, or from every source simultaneously, that fills the space and also somehow fills him. And in the center of the light there is a figure, and the figure speaks to him in Hindustani, and says, "How long will you persecute me? I died for you. I have come to save you." Sundar Singh falls to his face on the floor. He is there for how long he cannot afterwards say. When he gets up, the light is gone. But he is not the same person who knelt down. He goes to his father's room and wakes him. He says, "I have seen Jesus Christ." Sher Singh, who is a practical man and who loves his son, and who has also never had any particular interest in Christianity, looks at his youngest son's face and understands that something has happened that cannot be reasoned away. But he is also a man with a position to protect and a family reputation to maintain, and he knows what the community will say. He does what many loving fathers have done before and since when their child brings them news they cannot process. He sends Sundar back to bed and hopes it will pass. It does not pass. 3 months later, on his 16th birthday, a date he chooses deliberately as a declaration, Sundar Singh is baptized at a Protestant mission church in Simla. He walks to the church barefoot. He walks home barefoot. From that day forward, he will never wear shoes again. His family holds a funeral for him. In the Sikh tradition, when a family member converts away from the faith, the ritual mourning is real and complete. They are not being cruel. They are being honest about what has been lost. Sundar watches his own funeral from the outside, standing at a distance, and something in him understands that he has paid the first price and it is not the last. He is turned out of the family home. He has nowhere to go. He is 16 years old, barefoot, with no money and no shelter, and it is winter in Punjab. Here is what happens when a person has genuinely given everything up for what they believe. They do not calculate, they do not negotiate. Sundar Singh wraps himself in a simple saffron robe, the color of the sadhu, the holy man, the wanderer, and begins to walk. He has made a decision that will define the next 25 years of his life. He will not build a church. He will not start a denomination. He will not seek a salary or a title or a platform. He will walk from village to village, from province to province, from country to country, carrying only a New Testament and wearing only the robe. And he will tell people what he saw in that room at 3 in the morning on December 18th, 1904. He will do this the Indian way, not the colonial way, not with buildings and hierarchies and organizational structures imported from Europe. He will be a Christian sadhu, something that has no precedent, no category, no rule book. He will live as India's own holy men have always lived, in radical dependence on God and on the hospitality of strangers. The missionaries do not know what to make of him. He does not fit any of their frameworks. He is not a convert who can be installed in a pulpit and trained to replicate Western church culture. He is something older and stranger and more unsettling than that. He is simply a man who saw something and cannot stop talking about it. The first journeys are difficult in ways that have nothing to do with theology. Punjab in winter is cold. The roads between villages are long and the ground is hard, and hospitality is not guaranteed. There are nights when no one opens a door and Sundar sleeps in the open, wrapped in his thin saffron robe, in temperatures that would kill a less determined person. There are days when he does not eat because no one has offered food, and he will not demand it. He does not complain. He does not compare his situation to what it would have been if he had stayed home. He walks. But it is when he turns toward Tibet that the real cost becomes clear. Tibet, in the early years of the 20th century, is not a place that welcomes Christian missionaries. The lamas, the Buddhist religious leaders, have authority over entry and over teaching, and they are not interested in sharing the spiritual landscape of their country with a man in a saffron robe carrying a foreign book. Sundar is turned back at the border 3 times. He crosses anyway, through mountain passes that legitimate travelers do not use, in conditions that cartographers of that era marked on their maps simply as dangerous. In the Tibetan town of Razar, he is arrested, not fined, not warned, arrested, tried before the local authorities on charges of preaching an illegal religion, and sentenced to death. The sentence is carried out in the traditional manner. He is stripped of his robe, thrown into a dry well, a deep stone pit used for the disposal of animal carcasses and refuse, and the cover is padlocked above him. He is left there to die. It is dark in the well. It smells of death. The walls are stone and the stone is cold and there is no light and no way out. Sundar Singh prays, not because he is performing piety for an audience, because he has nothing else and it is the only thing that has ever been true. On the 3rd night, the cover of the well opens. He hears the sound of the padlock disengaging. He hears the cover being pulled back. He sees stars. He feels a rope lowered toward him, and he climbs and he comes up out of the well into the night air, and when he looks around him, there is no one there. The padlock, the local chief will later verify, was still locked when Sundar Singh walked into the town square the following morning and began to preach. This is not a metaphor. This is what eyewitnesses reported to the authorities, who then told the story to every traveler who passed through Rasar for the next decade. The chief is not a Christian man. He is a Buddhist. He has no theological reason to want this to be true, but he verifies it because he has no other explanation, and he is an honest man. Sundar Singh does not retell this story to make himself famous. He retells it always to answer the same question. Why do you keep going back? Why do you return to Tibet year after year when they have tried to kill you? Why do you walk barefoot into the places that have the least interest in what you have to say? His answer never changes. Because I have seen what is real. And once you have seen what is real, the cost of telling people about it is not a burden. It is the only reasonable response. By 1920, Sundar Singh is not a regional curiosity. He is an international figure. This happens without him trying to make it happen. A British writer named Canon Burnett Hillman Streeter writes a book about him. The book is published in London, translated into German, French, Dutch, Swedish, Japanese. People who have never been to India and cannot locate Punjab on a map begin reading about this man who walked barefoot out of a dry well and has since walked into every difficult place on earth. Invitations arrive from England, from Australia, from Switzerland, from the United States, from Canada. In 1920, Sundar Singh accepts and makes the journey west. Toronto in November is a particular kind of cold that Punjab has not prepared him for. He arrives wearing his saffron robe. He has not packed a warmer garment because he does not own one. The church committees who have organized his visit are simultaneously inspired by his simplicity and quietly alarmed about frostbite. He speaks at Massey Hall. More than 3,000 people come. He does not use notes. He does not raise his voice. He stands at the front of the room in his thin robe, and he tells people what he saw in the room at 3 in the morning. And something in the room becomes very still. A journalist from the Toronto Daily Star writes the next morning that she had attended the event, expecting to write something mildly interesting about a colorful religious figure from the East, and found herself unable to explain, in good journalistic prose, what had happened when the man began to speak. She tried 4 times to write the sentence and deleted it each time. She finally wrote only, "You would have had to be there. And even then, I am not certain words would help." He speaks to packed halls in Hamilton and Ottawa and Montreal. He speaks at churches where the people in the pews are polite, attentive Canadians who have come because someone they respect told them not to miss this, and who leave afterwards standing on cold sidewalks, not quite ready to go home, needing a moment before they can re-enter the ordinary world. But here is what the newspapers do not report. Between the public events, Sundar Singh is doing what he has always done. He is praying, not the polished public prayer of the lecture circuit. He is on his face in the small rooms where they put him, sometimes for hours, sometimes through entire nights, and the people who host him begin to notice something. A woman in Hamilton writes in her diary, "I woke at 3 in the morning and heard what I thought was someone speaking quietly in the guest room. I went to the door and listened and realized it was not speech, it was something older than speech. I stood at the door for I do not know how long and did not knock. I felt that I had no right to interrupt." This is the thing about Sundar Singh that his admirers sometimes miss. They see the public man, the quiet voice, the bare feet, the calm that seems almost supernatural in large rooms full of anxious people. They assume this calm is his personality, a spiritual gift he was simply born with. They do not see the hours that produced it. He is not calm because calm is his nature. He is calm because he has spent more hours in prayer than most people spend in sleep, and something has been worked into the texture of him that did not come without cost. The price of the well, he will later write. You do not know what you believe until the only thing you can do is believe it. The price of the road. Walking without shoes teaches you which ground is holy. All of it is. The price of the cold. The body's discomfort is the soul's reminder that we are not home yet. He does not say these things from a stage. He writes them in letters to people who have asked him hard questions and deserve honest answers. The invitation Sundar does not expect comes from within the church itself. Western Christianity, by 1920, has been organized for several hundred years, and organizations develop interests, and interests develop defensiveness, and defensiveness sometimes wears the clothing of theology. There are men, important men with titles and degrees and the backing of institutions, who have concerns about Sundar Singh. His mysticism is excessive. His reports of visions cannot be verified. His lifestyle is admirable, but his theology is imprecise. He has not been properly trained. He is, in the polite language of the correspondence that begins circulating in 1921, an irregular figure. A formal review is proposed. Sundar Singh is requested to submit to a committee examination of his theological credentials and the veracity of his reported experiences. He does not get angry. He does not write defensive letters. He does not hire a publicist. He simply writes back quietly to the man who has initiated the process and says, "If you believe these things did not happen, come to the places where they happened and ask the people who were there. I have nothing to prove. God does not need my defense." The investigation proceeds without his cooperation and concludes without finding anything that can be formally condemned. The committee cannot call him a fraud because too many credible witnesses have verified too many specific things. They cannot call him orthodox because he defies every category they have. They settle, finally, for irregular, which is accurate but not as damaging as they had hoped. But the damage is not nothing. Some of the institutional doors that were open begin to close. Some of the church leaders who had invited him stop inviting him. Some of the people who had written admiringly about him begin to write more cautiously. The whisper campaign is genteel, but it is effective, and by 1923, some of the momentum has slowed. Sundar Singh notices. He is not unaware of how the world works. He has been navigating hostile systems, Tibetan border guards, colonial bureaucracies, suspicious religious authorities in every country he has visited. For 15 years. He knows what opposition looks like when it wears different clothes. He does what he has always done. He goes back to prayer. He goes back to the road. He makes 4 more journeys into Tibet. He walks into Afghanistan, into Persia, into Ceylon. He is turned away at borders, and he finds other borders. He is locked out of buildings, and he preaches in the street. And in 1927, he makes a final visit to Tibet. He is not well when he leaves. The cough that has been quiet for a season has returned with authority. Friends and colleagues tell him to wait, to rest, to let his body recover before crossing those particular mountains again. He listens to them carefully and respectfully, and then, in the spring of 1929, he puts on his saffron robe and his bare feet and he walks north. He does not come back. No one knows exactly when or where Sundar Singh died. This is not a metaphor either. He simply disappeared into the mountains he had crossed a dozen times before, and no account of him emerges after April of 1929, and he is 40 years old. There is no grave, there is no final recorded word, there is no deathbed statement, there is not even certainty about the date. What there is, instead, is this. Every major Pentecostal and evangelical movement that emerged in Asia in the 20th century traces something of its character, its willingness to operate outside institutional structures, its embrace of the mystical, its decision to contextualize the faith into local forms rather than import it wholesale from the West. Back to the questions that Sundar Singh raised and the life he modeled, the man who challenged the Western Church to stop treating Christianity as a European export and start asking what it might look like rooted in the soil of Asia. That man had no denomination behind him, no mission board funding him, no organizational headquarters where his correspondence was filed and archived. He had a robe and a book and bare feet, and something he had seen in the dark. He wrote once, in a letter to a friend in Madras, "Do not be afraid of dying in a strange place. Every place where Christ has been named is home, and he has been named everywhere." He meant it practically. He had slept on more floors in more countries than he could count. He was genuinely unafraid of dying somewhere unfamiliar. But something in those words reaches past the practical. Something in them speaks to the question every person who hears this story eventually asks. Was it worth it? The bare feet and the cold and the dry well and the hostile committee and the whisper campaigns and the mountains he was told not to cross? Was any of it worth it? The woman in Burma who wrote that letter to the hospital in Switzerland was not asking about Sundar Singh's comfort. She was asking whether the things she had seen in that Karen village, the light settling over the mud building, the simultaneous breaking open in every person inside, was connected to something larger than the moment she was standing in. Whether what she witnessed was part of a fire that had been burning for a long time, started by unlikely hands, kept alive by people willing to walk into the dark and trust what they had seen. The answer she needed was not a theological argument. It was a life. It was a one-eyed boy from Rampur who hated Christianity, who fell on his face in the dark and got up changed, who wrapped himself in a saffron robe and walked barefoot out of his family's grief and his community's rejection and his church's suspicion and his own body's exhaustion, and who kept walking and who never stopped. You do not need credentials to carry fire. You need willingness to hold it even when your hands are cold. You need willingness to keep walking when the road is longer than you planned, and the mountains are more dangerous than anyone warned you, and the institution you thought was on your side has quietly, politely closed its door. You need to have sat in that room at 3 a.m. when the only choice was despair or something else, and to have chosen the something else so completely that the choice never has to be made again. That is what it cost. That is what it costs. And if you are watching this today from somewhere in the ordinary world, from a desk in a cold Canadian city, from a chair in a room that feels too small, from a life that feels like it has locked you out or thrown you in the well, you should know that the same fire that settled over a mud building in Burma in 1926 is not a historical event. It is available now. It has always been available. It does not require bare feet or a saffron robe or the particular mountains of Tibet. It requires only the willingness to say, at 3 a.m. when the choice is everything, I have seen what is real, and I cannot stop. Comment below if you are willing to walk that road. And if Sundar Singh's story has moved you, stay with us. Because behind this life is another story, a woman who crossed equally impossible distances and was forgotten by history for reasons that have nothing to do with the quality of what she gave, and everything to do with whose stories we choose to remember. Her story is next. Don't miss it.